digitaljamsessions.com.
Hello and welcome to this Digital Jam session. Today we are joined by Charles Cecil, who returns once again from Revolution Software, and we have with us Paul from Legion M, and we may have with us Mookie from ITV, who may stroll in at some point momentarily. But we thought we would begin this conversation, and first of all I'm going to ask you to very briefly explain to our audience exactly who you are and what you do. And I'm going to start with you, Charles.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tanya, I'm delighted because I think it's the first time you've pronounced my name Cecil rather than Cecile.
I know. I've been practicing so hard.
It hasn't gone unnoticed. But I rather like the sort of French tinge to what you did before. So most people would call me Charles Cecil, although my American friends have been known to call me Chuck Cecil.
And that's what I'll use.
Or, as somebody called me the other day, which I'm not sure whether it crosses a line or not, Chuckles.
That works.
It kind of does work, doesn't it? I was rather taken aback.
You are a very smiley person, Charles. I think Chuckles could work.
I'm not sure. Anyway, so I am here as the founder and the CEO of Revolution. We write adventure games. Our latest was Broken Sword 5, which we've written on and self-published on PC, Mac, Linux. I'm trying to keep the numbers of fingers in check. PlayStation Vita, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Apple TV, Apple iOS, Android, and a top secret format that we haven't actually yet talked about. So I'm still within 10 digits, and we're writing a new game now. And what particularly excites me is, one, the ability to communicate directly with our community, which I'd love to talk more about if you choose to ask me. And then secondly, how we can explore the medium, the wonderful medium of interactive narrative, to create really compelling video games that push the genre forward as a whole.
Wonderful. Thank you, Charles. Why don't you explain to us a little bit more about you and what you're up to at Legion M?
Sure. So I'm Paul Scanlon. I'm co-founder and CEO of Legion M. And Legion M is the world's first fan-owned entertainment company. So there are new laws in America that are, for the first time in our securities laws history, allowing everybody to participate in investing in startups. So they call it equity crowdfunding. So it's similar to Kickstarter and Indiegogo, where you can get fans involved and go out and get large numbers of people to help contribute and participate. But in this case, we call it next level, because in this you're actually owning shares. So our goal is to get a legion of fans to co-own our company together with us, and we have amazing creative allies, people like Seth Green and the team behind Robot Chicken, 42 Entertainment, Alamo Drafthouse, Meltdown Comics. And so we are kind of creating this new entertainment company that any fan can own. The minimum investment is $100. Mm-hmm. You can invest more than that if you want. You get equity, so the shares are priced, and it's all SEC monitored, etc. But our idea is that Legion M isn't just a company that you own shares in. I mean, that's part of it, but it's more than that. It's a movement and it's a community. And we believe that we have this saying, which is engagement is the new disruption. And, we're not necessarily trying to disrupt Hollywood, but we want to open the gates to Hollywood. We want fans to have a voice. We want them to be able to participate and get involved. And we feel like doing that is not only good fun and, interesting, it's also smart business. Mm-hmm. Because, in this day and age, the differentiating factor between two really high quality content projects is one got buzz and took off, and the other one, fell on deaf ears. And having a legion of people that are involved and, were there when we bought the script, and then when we started production, and we're doing an online hangout with the director and the cast, during that time, we're building up emotional investment in this project, so that when we bring a new, whether it's a movie or a VR project or a game or a television show, when we bring that content to market, and we're not doing all this ourselves. I mean, our idea is to go find projects like your projects and Revolution projects and Legendary projects and, all the different companies that we can potentially work with, to bring our legion of shareholders and investors and fans to get behind them to help improve their opportunities for success.
So the one thing that is kind of a commonality between what you've done with Legion M and what Charles has done with Broken Sword is this idea of actually engaging with the audience and your fan base and actually giving them a very mature and open conversation about your creative process and allowing them to be part of that conversation in a way that gives them a certain degree of respect that perhaps in the past, traditionally, a studio would not do. And I'm really, really curious whether or not you see this as kind of the beginning of a new era of the way in which entertainment is being crafted and formulated, in the same way that Netflix has come in and completely shifted the paradigm of how streaming has completely shifted how people consume entertainment.
Don't forget Moby TV had a big role in that as well.
Did have a huge impact on that, and so it's shifting the way that people perceive how studios behave.
Yeah.
And I'm curious from your perspective. I'm going to start with you, Charles, in terms of your experience with Broken Sword and that open conversation that you had, because I think that there are inherently differences between the way that a game studio might interact with an audience versus necessarily a cinematic or theatrical studio might engage with their audience. So I'm curious, Charles, from your perspective, how you initiated that conversation and how you felt about having that very open conversation about the direction of the creative.
Yeah, well, I actually wrote my first game for the Sinclair ZX81 in 1981. And we have one care of memory, and that was amazing because it was the cottage industry. The Americans were a few years ahead of us, but in Europe, back in those days, the company that I was invited to join, Arctic Computing, was one of the, if not maybe even the first European publisher. And what we did is we met our fans, and I remember going to what we called microfairs. And the first time somebody asked me to sign one of their cassettes, I felt like a rock star. And they told us, well, it was great. We were kids. We were all kids, and we heard what they liked, and we heard what they didn't like, and we talked to our competitors and what they liked, and it was a community. And then publishers started, as the development costs rose, started getting involved, and we lost the direct relationship. And then when PlayStation came along, and there was a real scramble for who could produce games that would go into retail, which was the only way, of course, in those days of selling, then publishers and retailers broke our chain. So for a long time, we had absolutely no relationship with our audience, and we relied on publishers to decide what they thought that retailers would want to stock by the time the game had finally finished. Mm-hmm. And so the retailer, the relationship with the community was absolutely owned by the retailers.
Yep.
And that started breaking when the iPhone was released in 2007, from my perspective, because we self-published the game. We started hearing back from our community, and it was just wonderful. It was wonderful, and as time grew, so more and more people, really enthusiastic, people who loved our games. Publishers had told us there was no market. Publishers had told us that it didn't make any sense. And you'll have to forgive me, Paul, if I steal your word, but a legion of fans came through, and they were just wonderful. They were and are wonderful. And that eventually led us to launching a Kickstarter in 2012. And we raised $850,000 from 15,000 backers. And, suddenly we have an extraordinary community, all of whom talk to each other, who become friends with each other, go out with each other because they have Broken Sword, as their common interests. And, in exactly the way that Paul has just so eloquently described, we created this community of fantastic people, and it's been, absolutely fantastic to be able to engage with them, and also to see them develop and go off in their own various directions, feeling that, we were the point around which, they became friends, around which they hang out and did a lot of the things that they chose to do.
Okay, so Paul, from your perspective, you're kind of at the beginning of this road, whereas Charles has kind of been on the road a little while now.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if you see or kind of anticipate any potential risks inherent with this very intimate relationship that you're now building with this legion of fans.
Yeah.
Whether perhaps there are expectations that are being set that maybe are a little bit too much of an expectation.
Well, this is one of the things we want to be really careful on. I mean, if anyone that's participating in the Legion, I mean, first and foremost, Jeff and I are totally accessible.
Yeah.
Jeff's my co-founder. We want to be accessible. We want to be transparent. We want to be informative. We've also warned everybody that, participating in a high-risk startup is, it's exciting and fun, but, it's very high risk. Yes. It's high reward, but it's also high risk. And a good part of the fun comes from having like extreme highs and good ups, but also, having some downs. It's a roller coaster ride. So we've already, hopefully, to the best we can, prepared people. But, you can never over prepare, I guess. But so we've been very clear with people that we don't want you investing your life savings. This isn't something for your college tuition. We've kept the minimum as low as we can possibly get it. And we also have a free option, right? So where you can participate for free. But along the lines of what Charles was, mentioning, a big part of it is almost self-organizing and self-preserving, right? So if there are different factions or someone who, maybe does have a concern. I mean, one of the things that we found in our Facebook group, and now we've launched forums, because our Facebook group, we just completely blew it out. I mean, we've got thousands of people in there, and it's one thread, and, it's hard to organize all the topics. But if someone did post something like, hey, why is this happening, or whatever, before Jeff and I even get a chance to read it, 10 other people have defended it or answered and, and clarified or done, whatever. So then it's already mending its own wounds, when that happens. And although, what I would say in general, like I think it's something more that we're likely to encounter. But today, the experience that we've had has completely blown our mind. It's exceeded our expectations on almost every level. And not just with the number of people, but their enthusiasm, their passion, their willingness to engage and to self-organize. And, just like Charles was mentioning that, last Saturday, there were like 4 different meetups that all were organized separately. We had nothing to do with it except people asked our permission. We said, yeah, go for it, and they get groups of investors in their local area, other Legion M members, and they get together and have a coffee, and they talk about how to grow the Legion and what types of projects. And, if we're available, we'll Skype in for part of it and, answer some questions. One of the things that we did, and this was probably, it was really, really fun. And I know you've done some similar things with your virtual reality virtual meetups. We did a Legion M toast, a worldwide toast with all of our shareholders. So we've got, 3,500 people plus 10,000 people that have signed up. And we used a product called Shindig. I don't know if you know Shindig. It's actually kind of cool. And it allows everybody that's participating to turn on their webcam, and then you can see them all in tiny little thumbnails, and you can bring them up on stage. So if they want to ask a question, you can, they can raise their hand, they can be populated, and then you can bring them up. But we got a group of people together. We ended up having several hundred, like probably 500 or 600 people that all got online at the same time with their camera on and whatever their favorite beverage was. And we raised a toast to our record-setting success that we had with these were all our new co-owners, and we were celebrating, and it was awesome. I mean, it was just a really cool, fun experience. So there you have it.
And I am curious because
welcome.
The ability to do this is because of the new technology that is available. And because of the evolution of technology that is available. And that's something I'm going to throw at you, Miki, because you've just walked in.
Hey, welcome.
Hey, nice to meet you.
So we're joined now by Miki Kuhan.
Hi, Miki, nice to meet you. Hello.
So Miki has just joined us. So for the benefit of our listeners, can you just explain very briefly who you are, what you do here at ITV?
Yes. Hi, I'm Miki. I'm an Aries. I like long walks in the park and triple flat whites, which I have about 15 of a day. I'm a managing director and executive digital producer for Mookie International, which is my own company. I'm currently heading up The Voice UK production at ITV as executive digital producer, which is a role I've kind of rolled over from the BBC. So it's very, very exciting, and that's awesome. Everything cross-platform, live streaming, all social production, 360 VR to action on the ground and
Awesome.
everything.
So
Apps,
can I try
a
out
good
after
app.
later?
Yeah, we will. We're actually here for auditions. Yeah. Got the danger.
Charles, are you ready? Are you getting your vocal cords tuned?
Hi, Charles.
So
Hi.
I do want to extend this question to you though, Miki. In terms of the topic that we're talking about is this evolution of the way that audiences are engaged and the way that we allow audiences to take part in not just the funding and the crowdfunding of a project, but now the creative direction of a project, which is something that both Charles and Paul are experiencing at the moment in terms of their respective projects.
Mm-hmm.
And I am curious because obviously you're dealing in what some might term as reality TV.
Mm-hmm.
And you're dealing in audiences who want to have an impact in the outcome of some of the shows that you're involved with. But as well, there is this element of technology that does allow and facilitate for that interaction and that engagement from a off-screen perspective, how they engage with the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious from your perspective, what you see as being kind of the most significant technologies that are facilitating these conversations with the audiences.
That's a really great, very layered question. I'll go with the last bit.
Good luck answering that. Wow, all right.
So just to be clear, I am representing myself as an independent producer.
Yes.
And we'll base this off of several projects I've worked on before, but obviously most recently with a show like The Voice. The best way to answer that question is with one word, and that's called app. The app.
Absolutely.
Shows like The Voice and X Factor, Britain's Got Talent, I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, things like that are really, really excel in bringing that reality almost to more of a reality for fans at home.
Mm-hmm.
There's interaction midweek before you get to each episode. There's interaction live on the Saturday night of these shows where fans can give their opinions on things and no one's sued by Ofcom or anything like that.
Right.
To playing games, to predicting things, to earning points and badges and gamification. And then of course voting. A lot of shows do the voting inside the apps. And I really there's lots of ways that you could be talking about a topic like this, you know. So there is activity like people doing bants on Twitter, people posting their own things and taking part on Facebook, now sharing snaps to one, filter hashtags or things like that. And same for Instagram. But really, when you have something like an app, it's like the hub of activity, and it's especially important for like your under 10s who don't have social.
Right.
There's a couple different layers of interactivity that the app is very, very important for main Saturday night shows that I would happen to be working on.
Nice.
But I am curious because
Well done.
very well done. In some ways, though,
I'm Switzerland. Don't put that in.
But in some ways, what I think is interesting in the commonality of the theme here is that when you talk about app and you talk about the importance of app in these shows, what you're also talking about is building that emotional relationship with the audience and with the content or the contestants or participants or whatever we might like to call these people, and building that emotional relationship between them, because otherwise there might not be that personal relationship to the contestant. In the same way that with projects like Broken Sword and projects like Legion M, there is this inherent investment of an emotional relationship to the property, to the studio, or to the specific contestant. And I'm curious. I kind of said this earlier, and I'm going to kind of revisit this because Mookie's in the room now, so Mookie can also answer this question. But I am curious if we see that perhaps there is this shift, this trend that we're seeing, where audiences do care more about what they're seeing and what the entertainment is and what the content of that entertainment is, and they want to be emotionally invested in that content in a way that perhaps in the past they were very used to people just saying, this is the content and you will be happy with it.
Right.
In the same way that with linear TV, they were used to being told, this is when it's on and you'll watch it when it's on.
Right. I mean, if you look at the transformation of the entertainment industry, so many mechanisms that were, from broadcast to linear to all these things are now what are giving the audience more control.
Or they'll state there exactly. So where before, so that's a great parallel. We say, okay, once upon a time we had TV and radio. Let's not forget radio.
Yeah.
Well, radio may be a bit less because there are a lot of like the day and age of like a phone in and shout outs and things like that. I think still live on to this day. But let's just go back to the visual art, television. You watch a show and you get what you get, or you just change your channel,
Right.
and there are only like 5 channels
There
or
weren't a
something
lot
like
of
that.
options.
Mhm.
Yeah. Least
But even with-
objectionable program.
But even with 500 channels, you still get what you get.
Mm.
And if you don't like it, you just flip it. And if you don't like that, you flip another one.
Mhm.
A little bit of that is reflected in social media, where if they don't like it, you get unfollowed.
Mm.
Yeah.
Or if you don't like it, they'll tell you.
Mhm.
Fans are very vocal,
Oh,
and they
yeah.
will hide behind whatever fake or real Twitter name they have or Facebook name they have. But there's also that chance to use that feedback and use that interactivity for
Right.
your own focus group
To learn from it.
and research 1,000%. So I
People
can
are
go.
offering their opinion.
Yeah, so recently I had a project over the summer, and it was with a band, and we were doing a stunt on Facebook, and it was just like people would be able to chime in during our Facebook Live and tell us what they thought.
Mm.
And that even went down to, hey, can you put the camera on the
Yeah.
singer? And we're like, oh, that's cool, let's do that. So
Yeah.
it was almost like a choose your own adventure style,
Yeah.
Mhm.
where there is that interactivity where fans do have control and have a say.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I'm not going, shut up, don't tell me what to do. I'm directing this on the floor. I'm going,
Right.
oh,
That's
it's
a
a
good
fan
idea.
experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
I want to give them, let people feel like they're taking part. Because then
Yeah.
the second they feel like that they have a contribution
Mhm.
and it's in a positive way, they'll come back.
Yeah.
So we have a motto, I mentioned this earlier, that engagement is the new disruption. And it's how we think about it. And really the watchword in the entertainment industry today is engagement. How much engagement do you have with your audience and your fan base? I mean, it used to be that you'd have a fan base, and Nielsen would tell you have a fan base, and that was how you measured it, and you weren't really sure if it existed, and you didn't have access to them. But it's totally different now.
Yeah.
You know exactly, and it's measurable, and it's on and it's off. And I think that the fans themselves have also, part of it is the technologies and the different way that consuming media has changed, but also some of it is a reaction,
Mhm.
and I think that there are certain areas of entertainment where the fans aren't satisfied and they're feeling like, wait, why
They let you know, honey.
Yeah,
They let you know.
why is Hollywood spending
Mhm.
only doing remakes and reboots
Oh,
and anything
indeed.
with
There are people who are
But-
very,
That's
but
very
something
the
fans
answer
are
is-
familiar with.
Yeah.
And
well,
they're probably
the
afraid
answer
to do
is
something.
really simple, and it's actually where we see the opportunity as Legion M is, Hollywood's owned by Wall Street,
Mhm.
right? It's bottom line driven. It's
Mhm.
not necessarily an art form.
It's very
this
risk
is-
averse.
It's very risk adverse. I mean,
Mhm.
if you produce a bad movie, if you don't, I take that back. Not if you produce a bad movie. If you
Commercially
produce a movie that doesn't make money.
Yeah.
And so the problem is now producing a bad movie that makes money is better than producing a good movie that doesn't make as much money.
Mhm.
And
Say that again?
I'm not sure I
You lost
even
me at
understand
money
it.
because
Right.
I need more of it all the time.
but one of the things that we're excited about with Legion M, because we really do feel like we can add value to Hollywood, because the missing link is that Hollywood doesn't want to invest in something that doesn't have a fan base to start with, right? So they're bringing back things that still have a fan base, and they'll remake it, and they'll do a sequel, or they'll do all these different things. But with Legion M, what we're talking about is having a fan base as our shareholders becomes almost a movable fan base, where we can apply it to things that they're interested in, that we like, and now that project that otherwise, before we got involved, no one had ever heard of it.
Yeah.
And it might have some good talent and people involved, and every time you attach someone, you grow the fan base a little bit, because people are like, oh, I like that director, I like that creator, and I want to see what they're doing. But having a legion of people that are already invested in it is another way to help grow the fan base and de-risk the project.
The record labels operate the very same way, Like they don't, even from 10, 15 years ago, they started not to sign bands that didn't have a MySpace following.
Right.
Yeah.
How many MySpace followers they have? And then
exactly.
add that up with the YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, everything else, Instagram, now Snapchat, everything else. That's their
But I find this interesting
brownie
because
points.
in some ways it's kind of very similar to the way that a game studio might work, in as much as one of the key differences between how a film studio will create content versus how a game studio creates content is that the game studio will be able to leverage the existing audience for the previous title to the next title.
Right.
Whereas a film studio doesn't really have that option.
Yeah.
And now with Legion M, there is this potential to be able to behave in a very similar way to a game studio, to be able to carry the audience through per
Absolutely.
film.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, Charles, from your perspective, because you've talked about this interest that you have about being able to create interactivity with the audiences and being able to create interactive stories and narratives. I'm curious how you see this changing over the next few years and what you think will be the direction that needs to be taken in terms of being able to create that very interactive relationship, similar to what Mookie was referring to, with the fans kind of guiding, if you like, the output of the actual content.
Well, when Double Fine did the Kickstarter for Broken Age, Tim Schafer came on and said, we're going to write a game with you. And that was clearly not going to happen. That was never going to happen, nor should it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think what's important is that you want to delight, you want to surprise your audience. And what you want to do then is hear what they like and what they don't like, but I think it has to be driven by your ideas. Otherwise, you know the old expression that a camel is a horse designed by a committee. And
I've never heard that saying before, Charles, but thank you for that.
Right. Well, there you go. And what happened when we did our Kickstarter, which kind of I think reinforces all the points that you've been making earlier, is our main character George didn't look quite right. We knew he didn't look quite right, and a lot of fans, well, when I say a lot, maybe 20 out of the many thousands that had backed us came and said, we really like this, but he doesn't look quite right. And they were right. They knew exactly what was wrong. So we posted an update and we thanked everybody. And it was an absolute win-win, because from our perspective, we had an awful lot of people who were exactly our target audience, who were very happy to give us feedback. And from their perspective, somebody was actually listening. They had a voice.
Yes.
Yeah.
In a creative process for which they really cared. And this is sort of unique. And when you were talking, I was just trying to wonder, because when I was young and we had linear TV and we had 2 channels or 3 channels, you never actually for a moment imagined that you would have any input on that whatsoever. And that didn't worry us, because we'd get together as friends, we'd talk about things, but there wasn't ever a sense that you could change it. And what I wonder about is whether Kickstarter and the ability of communities to communicate directly with creators has come about because they can now, or because actually the digital age has created a yearning and a need that didn't exist 20, 30 years ago. And I'm not sure in my mind whether it's just because the technology allows this to happen, or because people psychologically are driven slightly differently to 20 or 30 years ago.
Do you not think that perhaps there is a slightly cultural shift, in as much as perhaps, a decade ago we wouldn't have been quite so verbal anyway, because we would have just assumed it is the content and I will accept it how it is, versus nowadays we're kind of a bit more used to, if we don't like something, just saying that we don't like it and getting it out there and, tweeting it or Instagramming it or whatever it is that we do. There is, I think, a cultural shift that allows us to be more free with our articulation when we don't like something or when we want to see something change. What do you think?
Absolutely, and I'll just get one more word in, and then let somebody else say something. I mean, one of the things that we are very privileged in is that if things start going wrong, of our community, I wouldn't like to hazard a guess. If it's, let's say it's 30, 40,000 people that have an interest or a peripheral interest in what we're doing. If we do something wrong and a few hundred people start commenting, then that is an early warning system. And anybody who doesn't listen is a fool, because while only 100 people are actually raising it, almost certainly many, many more people are actually feeling it but haven't voiced it yet, and will do if nothing changes. So you see developers who don't respect and don't take notice of what their community is saying, and in some cases they get, the ripple turns into a wave and turns into a tsunami and drowns them. And you look at them and say, well, why did you not respond? Why did you not respond when the warning signs were so clearly there? And you know, I'd like to think we have a huge respect for our community because we were very close to bankruptcy, and these are the people who, you know, had confidence in us and were prepared to fund our project, and as such we hold them in very high regard, and we do our very best to try and keep the relationship that we have, and to respond to any concerns that they have. So that's from a development perspective, as a developer and a publisher of our own games and apps. That's my view on it.
Okay, so Paul, you're going down that road. Do you think that this is something that you might in the future need to have more of a direct kind of feedback loop on the specific direction of the creative, and be able to, as Charles says, have that early warning system?
Well, we have a really strong opinion on this subject, and we feel like you need to find the right balance between giving the fans a voice and letting them give notes to the director, right? And what we tell everyone,
except if you're doing a Facebook Live with Baby Cairo.
Yeah. What we tell everyone that's participating in Legion M is that, you know, Legion M wants to empower creators, and we want to get behind people that we support and that we love, and we want to allow them to do what they're good at and what they should be doing, and we want to get out of their way. I mean, a big part of, you know, the way the entertainment industry works is there are so many middlemen and people involved that things can get diluted, and we want to have the opposite effect. But with that said, we also want people to have a voice, and I think people want to have a voice. We've already had a couple of examples like this that have been phenomenal, and the education and the information that we get is, you know, it's what studios pay massive amounts of money to go out and hire people and round up focus groups and get this information. We have it at our fingertips. So when we engage on a project, what we'll do is we'll allow that creator and encourage them to know that they have access to these people, and they're on the same side of the table as we are, because they want this project to be successful, and their interest is aligned. And, you know, we've had some examples where we put something out at 11 o'clock at night, and the next morning we have a couple hundred people giving us feedback and telling us, you know, if it's a poll, we already have a lot of information, right? So we know what the men thought, we know what the women thought, we know what this age bracket thought, we know what that age. And this is like really like valuable data to have to put back into the production of the content. So, you know, our attitude is you don't make great artwork by committee. So we're really clear about that. But fans giving input can be extremely valuable, and you should listen.
Okay. I'm curious though, what do you see the future role of the kind of Legion M's, if you like, being, because you talked there about how other studios would pay quite a lot of money to be able to have access to that kind of information. Is that something that you see further down the line being able to offer to other studios? I
don't see us offering that. It feels kind of disingenuous. It's not what we started, and it's not our primary role. I think where we would bring it to bear is on a project that we're partnered with. Right? So if we're working on a project with Legendary Pictures, then of course, then we have access to this, and that's one of the benefits. It's one of the reasons why Legendary or A24 or whoever it is would be interested in us coming to the table and you know, participating in the project.
Okay.
I mean, the thing is, what we always say is that, you know, in entertainment, there are really three major critical factors that you need. You need money to create great content. I mean, it's expensive. You need talent. And you need an audience, right? You want the audience, the fan base. And
that's always the one that people forget about.
Yes. And so with Legion M, you know, when we come to the table, we're bringing money and a fan base. And, you know, if we partner with the right talent, then we've got the three pillars that we're going to need for success.
Okay. I'm curious, Miki, from your perspective, and this is me throwing a complete curveball just because I feel like throwing a curveball.
Why not? I got a glove. Let's do it.
Can we catch this one? I'm curious, do you see a point, at some point in the future, Not necessarily on any of your shows right now, because we'll not commit you to that.
I'm not.
But I am curious. Do you think
My views do not represent any of those major broadcasters that I mentioned.
This is Mickey's views.
Yes, it.
But I am curious. Do you think that there will be a point where the shows that you're working on, or the types of shows that you're working on, will actually have a camera view specifically for the fans to be able to kind of edit or kind of create an element of the experience for themselves?
I think that happens already, to be honest with you now, because there's the various shows that I've worked on there in the UK.
Yeah.
They'll have like some major Uber fan base in Singapore.
Yeah.
And they basically find a way to rip the show, make their own mashup and edit.
Yeah.
Especially and distribute it on their platforms, and then obviously try to make loads of money on YouTube, even by putting a little curtain around the content.
Yeah.
So there's a way that that's kind of happening already.
Yeah, but I'm talking about
those secret those secret cameras are like they find ways to do it, and the pirates are the pirates. And when I do work on major Saturday night telly type of shows in the world of digital, we're pirate hunting every single week and Saturday night. And I actually sometimes we'll give like, okay, you're on pirate duty tonight. You're on pirate duty tonight. And it's a whole yo-ho-ho and a bottle of rum. As far as broadcast goes, will there be a toolkit and camera? I mean, the kind of gear exists already. And luckily, I just got back from IBC. Yeah. And I saw like tons of it, and I wanted to buy everything. More for myself, and then I have it for my own production company. These things do exist. Will they ever be implemented into a major Saturday night studio? Maybe not, though, because the traditional...
Do you think that anybody giving that trust to the audience? To be able to say, this is our show, these are the shots and the edits that we have, and we're going to put this in the hands of the audience.
So they would choose their own viewpoint.
That's being broadcast.
To the television, no, not at any time soon. Maybe if it was like a red button switch over or something.
That's been done.
Sure.
I'm just curious how far you think they would trust the audience.
It wouldn't be for an entire show. Say it's a 60 or 90 minute episode. Yeah. Potentially, if it was part of like a backstage digital show I'm working on or something, and then here's for the next 30 seconds. For the next 30 seconds, fans can direct which camera they want to do. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. The risk you take, especially with commercial broadcasters, that so much money goes into the advertising and sponsorship. The second you jeopardize any of that, then you're in major trouble. And also then, if like there isn't that right kind of tech support and backup and the transmission goes down, you're in major trouble. Yeah. The BBC probably would... I'm representing the views of myself, and my views do not accept me. The BBC potentially could take a chance on something like that for like a sporting event, or maybe footy, footy fanatics or something, or maybe, something like that, but not the whole time, because they're viewing it. So a director, as an executive producer for anything on the television, is really, it's a quality control that it goes out from the idea to production to transmission. And even if it's a pre-record, but for a live television show, I can't see that happening anytime soon. And if it did, let's throw the cards on the table and say in 20 years' time, potentially, or 15 years' time. And if I'm wrong, I buy you a bottle of wine.
You heard it here.
I'll get you a beer, whatever your poison is. Charles, I've not met you, buddy, but I'll buy you a drink. How's that?
I think we did. We met. Did we not meet?
Oh, we did.
In London.
Yes,
we have. Sorry, your name is upside down. I can't see your face.
No, we did.
I thought your forehead looked familiar.
I was going to say, and you see, a name like Mookie is unforgettable.
Thank you.
As indeed are you. But Charles is a much more common name, so that's fine.
Did I meet you at Comic-Con?
Yes, it was
a Comic-Con, right on.
It was Comic-Con, yeah.
Here in London. Hi, Charles. How are you?
Well,
you haven't tweeted me for a while.
It's lovely to hear from you again. I'm sorry I can't be with you. I'm there in spirit and virtually.
We feel it. We feel your vibes.
Because here on the Digital Jam sessions, we don't let technology get in the way.
Don't let technology get in the way.
Oh, there you are. I'm taking a better look at you now. Okay.
I'm not sure that people really want to have full control, because I think what they want to do is they want to contribute rather than to control.
Yes.
Because, there's a profound difference. Because if you have a deep respect for the creators of whatever you're doing, whether it's a TV show or a film or a computer game or whatever, then I just think people want to be a small part. If they can become the camera director or whatever, then that to me feels like a quite different relationship.
I do think you're right. I agree with you on this, and I think the example of things like Conman are really great examples of allowing the fans to really have a participation, but without really handing over any reins, any actual control to anybody. And I do think that this is a trend that we're seeing more and more of. But what I am going to ask, as is tradition, and Mookie and Charles know this already, Paul is being
Are you a Virgin Digital Jam session guy?
My co-founder did the last one.
Interesting. Let's see what he said.
All right, I'm on the hot seat. What is
you are, yeah.
We'd like to ask a very particular question, which I'm now going to fire at you, which is, bearing in mind...
Sorry, that was a very evil laugh.
Mookie's got the biggest grin on her face right now. But we want to know, bearing in mind the topic of the conversation today, what do you think is going to be the significant change that needs to happen in the next 5 to 10 years? Or whether that's a technological change, a cultural shift, whatever that thing is, that will completely reinvent the way that people currently perceive that relationship with the audiences. And I'm gonna give Paul enough time to think about this, because he's not done this before.
Yeah.
But Charles, I'm gonna start with you.
No, you start with Mookie.
Can you repeat the question? No. So what's going to be the significant change in the next 5 or so years
What do you see being that thing that's going to completely change the way that we as creators and as publishers and distributors view the audience, or how we perceive that audience and how we build that relationship with the audience?
I think if there were less douchebags online, that would help. That would definitely make a difference, because I don't trust any of them now. I don't trust a single one of them. I don't trust...
We have a thing we call troll hunting.
Well, that's pirate hunting. So we troll hunt and we pirate hunt.
Yeah.
I think authenticity is very, very important, but even that is it comes across as a bit fake sometimes. From our perspective as publishers and producers, how would we be able to trust the audience? What's going to come out there? Lie detector tests, cyber lie detector tests, identity by fingerprint that we would be able to see, like born identity.
Scans.
I'm going crazy now. This is what I want. It might be 10 years time. Yeah, maybe. I'm being serious. Let's invent this, because if we're engaging with any of our audiences on any platform at any given time, maybe it would be nice to know, like, okay, hey, that's Paul. Yep, it definitely is Paul.
We did a scan. He's looking.
I saw his fingerprints. His fingers been read through his laptop.
Forget the fingers.
Or his iPad.
He's looking.
Yeah, he's looking.
Yeah.
Unless they're blind and they have their eyes shut. They still have to use their fingers, right?
And they can't see.
And then you take breathalyzer tests. Maybe, you know what, I'm being genuine. Maybe that... I never ever thought about this, but because I have like 10,000 ideas that go through my head when you ask me these questions, Tanya. Which is why I love coming on Digital Jam podcast, everyone around the world.
That was a good plug, wasn't it?
Thank you. At Digital Jam Limited on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram.
Available for investment.
Available investments. And luring with great Korean food and bottles of wine for me.
We are open to sponsorship. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe that would be something interesting to think about. And I'm sure it's being developed somewhere around the world. The retina thing, of course. We already know that passport control. There's lots of different even game. It's getting involved in that kind of gaming industry and things like that. But I think it'd be interesting that we could do an identity check at any given point, at any given time, on any platform to see if somebody's actually legit. That could be helpful for the police as well, and any kind of industry where there are people not pirating material, but they're also like the proper baddies and doing bad things on the internet and the web. So I would say a very sophisticated, high technology, touch and visual sensory identification thing.
So what I'm going to take from what you're saying, Mickey,
.org
is that here's what I'm going to say. I'm taking from your comment is that you are looking for transparency with the audience.
Yeah, let's go for that. I like my big answer, but if you want to go cut to the chase.
I got a Brave New World feeling.
The question was, how do we as creators trust the audience?
Secured,
you kind of
checked,
don't.
And monitored by the government.
Do you now?
No, I don't know.
Oh, you're with me. Well, we could just make a new company now.
That's what he was getting from you.
Oh, I see. Yeah, or we just patent that.
Yeah.
I have lots of friends in the ethical hacking world that can help out with all of that. Guys, between the four of us, seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And the other 17.5 million.
Yeah.
We've already talked about it.
And you out there.
Yeah, we should.
Are you listening? Hashtag. Hashtag.
Too late to patent.
Too late. No. Hashtag.
Okay.
Is it really you?
Is
Real
it
ID.
really you? Real ID.
Yeah.
ID you.
But
Okay. That's
Charles,
not good.
what's
Sorry.
your thoughts on this question?
Gosh, do you know, I'm going to have to come up with a much more boring. I think, having experienced some of the way that you can view online tournaments in VR, I think for the hardcore fans who really want to get in to an experience over the next 5 years, the advances in VR are going to be quite spectacular. I mean, the VR technology generally exists, of course,
Yes.
and it's really now creatively how that VR is applied.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to give such a boring straight answer.
That is not a boring answer in any way, shape, or form.
I'm with you on that
I
one,
thought
Charles.
Cookies was much more fun.
I'm
But,
with you on that. I just got
I'm
back
really
from IBC and geeked out on VR for 4 solid days. I chaired a big panel on VR. I'm with you. I'm high-fiving you over
Fantastic.
the cyber high-five. A virtual high-five.
Virtual
And
reality.
then, obviously, what we have within the VR is the ability to make sure that people. Oh, sorry. You also, of course, have your own avatar if you choose to, but that avatar is going to give the real name, so you can't hide behind the internet filth.
And then I'll check it's really your avatar.
And it'll come with
Exactly.
fingerprint scan.
Fingerprint scan.
Yes.
Okay.
A pixel scan.
Okay, Charles, I'm with you on that in terms of the idea of esports and observing others and observing in large groups and audiences. I'm trying to expand to give Paul more time to
I'm
answer.
ready to go.
Okay.
I'm ready
New
to go.
boys, the digital jam
It takes me that
virgin.
long to form a
The digital jam
Okay.
virgin needs to say right now.
I'm ready.
Hit
to
us
go.
with it, Paul.
All right.
What
so-
is your thought on this question?
All right, on this question, I would say, we fundamentally believe in the power of the fans, right? I mean, that's the whole reason why we're starting this company. And so 15 years from now, we think that, fans have a lot more impact and they're a lot more involved. I mean, we call it opening the gates to Hollywood. I mean, we're opening the gates and a few people are coming in, but pretty soon there are no gates. I mean, the walls come down and it's
No trainers allowed.
It's a totally different environment where content gets created, and I think more art will be created in that new context. I mean, I don't think the studios go away. We're not here to displace anyone, but we believe fundamentally in the power of that, and we believe in it beyond entertainment. We believe that there are other industries beyond entertainment that also could have more involvement from its constituents or its consumers that get more involved. I mean, imagine a bank that gets created and by a community of people that all put, some money in together to get behind a team that they trust to do an ethically and morally, aligned bank that with full transparency and,
Where's that bank?
There's actually a bank. There is actually a bank that does this, that was set up by musicians. And it's so basically it's creatively, these people got together and said, we need a bank that understands us, understands our industry and understands how we operate.
See, and I think things like this are going to exist.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would say on the virtual reality side is, we're not betting the farm on virtual reality, but we do believe it's the future of storytelling. I mean, it's not the only way to tell a story in the future, but we do believe in its power. In fact, the first project that we announced is a virtual reality project, and it's, for us, we're using it as a virtual time machine. I mean, we want to be able to, we're using volumetric virtual reality to shoot project that we call Icons Face to Face, and this I'm plugging this project right now. But, our first subject is Stan Lee, and he's agreed to do this, and so we're going to shoot Stan Lee in virtual reality, having an intimate conversation with someone that he's close to, some other celebrity that I can't name yet, but they're going to have an intimate conversation. So for generations to come and for people all around the world, we'll be able to recreate that experience of being in a room with Stan Lee, sit across the table from him, get up close to him.
That's his cameo, right?
That's his cameo. Yeah.
We're basically talking about the Star Trek, holosuite.
Yeah, it's a holosuite. Yep.
That's basically what we're here doing now.
Exactly.
But what about in the future? How do you trust your fans? How do you trust the audience?
Well, how do you...
From the future. Well, how do we...
I suppose,
I
going
think
back
you bring
to
up
the
a
topic.
good point, because if some of those fans came from the future and they already know, then are they manipulating reality? And could that create a paradox? I mean, I don't know. I mean, these are things that we need to think
Are we in
through.
the Matrix?
With the time machine.
In this room, yes. We are definitely our fourth dimension.
Yeah.
Charles, you're not getting out of this one. You're part of it.
Yeah, I want to be. Can I be in your fourth dimension too, please?
You're in there, buddy. You're in there.
Ah, fantastic.
But what I am going to say is that we like to make sure that our listeners have a way to be able to find out a little bit more about you and what you're up to. And we ask you to do that by sharing with us your social media handle of choice. And Charles, will you kick us off with your social media handle of choice?
Yes, I think that would be Twitter, and it's easy. It's at Charles Cecil, and that surname is Cecil.
Thank you very much. And Mookie.
Hi, you can find me on @MookieApproved across all platforms, but I'll talk to you quicker on Twitter.
And we're on all of them as well with Legion M Official. The best place to reach out to us, though, is probably on Facebook, because then we can get you into our private Facebook group where we have active, ongoing dialogue and discussions.
With Stanley.
With everybody.
With everybody.
He has been in there, actually.
We will share that.
We had a party in LA and invited just a small little get together with some of our creative allies and other partners, and we invited Stan, and he literally came over and had a beer with us.
Aww.
Yeah.
And he's 112 years old.
He's 112 years old. He didn't even drink his whole beer, but he came and he sat with us. Super nice guy.
Oh, fantastic!
Just
fantastic.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I love that man.
Well, what I want to do is I want to thank you for joining us on this Digital Jam session. And as usual, I would say to you that you can follow us on Twitter at Digital Jam Ltd. And please do remember to subscribe and review if you like this content. And thank you once again for listening to this Digital Jam session.
digitaljamsessions.com